Just as Cataclysm left its scar on Azeroth, I believe that past nerfs and tunings have left their scars on all of the healer specs. So in today's video, I'm going to be going through every single of the 7 healer specs and talk about why I believe they all need a rework. And I don't just mean like massive overhauling reworks. We're going to be talking about the small things that are just negatively impacting or affecting the health or the growth of each spec in the long term. So I believe mid-patch is a fantastic time to go over this, and we're going to start off with RDruid. Sorry for the quick swap. But with RDruid, they have kind of been shifting how the spec plays over time. They've also kind of revamped cat weaving so that it's definitely viable with how they've revamped the spec tree a lot. So I do believe they've made a lot of fantastic shifts in the long term for the spec and how the player base wants the spec to behave. However, I do think that there are some corrosive talents on their tree that are just preventing, not abundance, I'm sorry, but that's just where my mouse landed. But these talents are just preventing the further growth of the enjoyment of the player base of this spec. And I think, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to agree with me that Grove Guardians have served their purpose. They have seen their time, and it's kind of time for them to go. I think these guys, this passive healing source, this mini cooldown, it was a fantastic idea, and I think that they should further explore that in the future with other healers. I just don't think that this is healthy for druids, and I don't think that this is a healthy spec to have this passive healing bot that you summon that applies more hots and stuff or amplifies how much healing you do. This is just not healthy for the spec, and it's taking up a lot of design space in the talent tree. It's actually in a very crucial point in the talent tree where you split for some pretty important talents, and it shares a node with another dead talent. So all in all, you're kind of forced to take this talent and play around it. I'm not saying that it's bad. Like, you definitely do want to take it because of its power, but the problem is that they've done a lot of simplification with this spec and how it plays and made it a lot more new player friendly, which, while not taking away from the high skill ceiling that the spec has, and Grove Guardians are still kind of bogging down the complexity of the spec and how to, you know, improve as a player, when really it's just a passive heal that you put down and it does like smart healing for you. I think a lot of the potential power that RDruid has is delayed or prevented because Grove Guardians still exist. And by just simply removing this, replacing it with something else, I believe like a very powerful and a very something that would make sense in this spot in the talent tree would be a damage cooldown. I don't think druids have a damage cooldown or ever have had like a major damage cooldown outside of something like Heart of the Wild. I don't think their damage is egregious right now. They actually have to work very hard to get a little bit less damage than some of the other specs like us Mistweavers. And putting something next to efflorescence, like maybe like a 1.5 minute cooldown that turns your efflorescence into like these entangling corrosive roots that just like smack things that are inside of it, like enemies inside of it, kind of like acid rain. I believe that could be a very cool way to open up this talent tree and then allow some of Grove Guardian's healing power to be dispersed across the spec. I think that Trank could use some of that power. I think honestly, just Trank. If I'm being honest, I think Trank in 5-man environments, then in Mythic or in raiding, I think the blooms, like the blooms that you get from whenever your life blooms bloom inside of your efflorescence, like talents like that can use like a little bit of that power. If they could just take a syringe, take all the healing power out of Grove Guardians, inject it into some of the other sources that already exist and that players enjoy playing around, and then just remove Grove Guardians and replace it with something that is specifically damage, I think the game would be a lot better for it. And then on top of that, what's up with the Nourish? Why is it still here? Who's asking for this to stay in the game? I don't know. But moving on, let's move on to Holy Priest. Holy Priest. After that, after talking a little bit about RDruid, I think that Holy Priest is a pretty good one to move into. I think Holy Priest is actually in a pretty good spot. Like, it's not the best healer, but it's by no means how bad it used to be in the past. It has received a lot of buffs, and I think a lot of those buffs are going under the radar right now due to it sharing a spec with Discipline Priest. So, Holy Priest feels very good in both Raid and Mythic Plus, specifically in Raid, where only your throughput shines through. However, in Mythic Plus, you still can do insane amounts of healing. You can spread around your prayers of mending with Oracle, getting those premonitions to reset that cooldown. It's just honestly, it's such a sick spec, and it's a very cool and very well designed spec. And now that it's healing a proper amount, all of those the complexity and interactions are really starting to shine through. I definitely think the prayer of healing buffs and changes have really affected this spec in a positive way, in my opinion, because of how it interacts with Lightweaver. Now when you're trying to do healing, you flash heal, and then either heal, or heal prayer of healing, or prayer of healing if you want to. It feels very impactful having the option now to use the Lightweaver stacks on AoE healing, and having a rotational AoE heal spell that also doesn't feel too bad to press when everyone's at like 90% health, but one person's at 70% health, which before this, Holy Priest really didn't have much for that with just one global. They had to spend like a Sanctify charge plus a Serenity charge to do what a now Prayer of Healing can possibly do. Now, it's obviously a lot less than those two Holy Words, but still, like I said, this spec has beautiful design interactions. A lot of the newer talents are also probably some of the most fun to play around, like Divinity. I think Divinity is one of the most fun healer talents to play around. When you pop your Apotheosis, your next few heals, Prayer of Healings are instant. Now they're worth pressing too, so you can machine gun some health bars up. Very cool. Now, where do I think I've done a lot of glazing or praising or whatever you want to call it on Holy Priest, but where do I think that they could further improve this spec from where it is currently? Sorry for the giant Wicked ad, by the way. Great movie. Don't know about in the theaters or whatever. Anyways, Divine Hymn. I think Divine Hymn is one of their biggest letdowns. Now in Raid, this spell is fantastic. It's really making up for like what it and Salve used to do in the past. Like, it is your big amp. However, in Mythic Plus, this is very lackluster. You still take it because you do just need a cooldown desperately on the spec when your Apotheosis is down, but it just is very lackluster in 5-man environments. So what I would do is I would either take away that healing reduced beyond 5 targets thing, and then just rebalance to where it's good in 5-man environments and 20-man environments, or find a way to give this spec another cooldown back. And I'm not talking something like Salve that is a raid cooldown. I mean, find a way to give Holy Priest another Mythic Plus cooldown. I do understand that this spec is supposed to be designed around the Holy Words, which are very low cooldown, and you can cycle them very quickly. However, this spec is just, it suffers in Mythic Plus. Because you're using things like Lightwell, like you need to fill those gaps between your apotheoses, or be very careful about when you use your apotheosis, because that is such a massive healing window. And then outside of that, you're relying on things that just are not that fantastic, like him plus Lightwell and stuff like that. So if they could find a way to squeeze in another like way to kind of machine gun turret some healing, like if they changed around like something like Divine Word just to make your next Holy Word not go on cooldown, then you could like Divine Word, Serenity, 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 and boom, boom, boom. That's a lot of healing, something like that. Change around something like that, and I think the spec could be in a very well, or do very well. And obviously Premonition kind of does that, but not to that extent. That's not what I'm talking about. Something kind of like Convoke, like something that is a specifically Mythic Plus cooldown that also can have some impact in Raid. So, like I said, Holy Priest in a pretty good spot relative to where it's been in the past. I just don't think it's like shining this season, because this is not a season designed for pure HPS. I don't think HPS is going to put you at the top, obviously. You need some more mitigation, and I think it's okay to have a spec be healthy that does not have mitigation, and I think Holy Priest is a great example of that. So, moving on, let's talk about Resto Shaman. I love Resto Shaman. I'll talk about Resto Shaman all day. And in fact, I do think Resto Shaman is in a fantastic spot from a design standpoint. I think Obviously, they're being played in both Raid and Mythic Plus at some very high levels, so it's in a very strong spot. So I don't want to tweak the numbers too much. It's not broken. It's not to the broken capacity. So, like I said, don't want to tweak any numbers like that. However, the biggest turnoff of this amazing spec that everyone should try out, but a lot of people are just scared to right now, is I'm just guess. Guess what I'm going to say here. What's the one word I'm about to say? What is the big turnoff of Resto Shaman right now? I hope you guys guessed it, but it's mana. I think the mana of this spec is absolutely atrocious. I mean, we live in a world where Mistweavers have mana tea to go near infinite with their mana. Druids have, well, they're not taking it in this build, but they have Master Shapeshifter to literally have infinite mana and Raid that just spam Wrath during downtime, get all their mana back basically. Resto Shamans don't. They do have some things like Mana Spring, which I think I'm blocking here. Things like Mana Spring that kind of give some mana back to your allies, and that plays pretty well in your raid build that you play with a bunch of Riptides and stuff. So that's cool, but it's a very small amount. I mean, think about 2,000 in the year 2025. That's not a lot of mana that you're giving to people, and the fact that a lot of the power of this talent is being spread to your allies that don't need the mana. Like your Mistweaver monk does not need Mana Spring. You would rather have all of those 5 allies be funneled into yourself, you know what I mean? Things like this are just not acceptable. So what would I do? How would I change this? One, I would not change anything numbers wise. I think its damage is in a good spot. Acid Rain, I'm okay with Acid Rain being a primary damage source for the spec, and then having more active damage be allowed if given the circumstance in a Mythic Plus dungeon. I think its CC, its utility, is in a great spot. It's not broken ever since that Poison Cleansing Totem nerf. I think it's not broken, even though we're not in a Poison Cleansing Totem like season or anything. I also think that it's landed on its feet with AG being removed from the game. I think Ascendance has really stepped up. Your totems have really stepped up. Surging Totem and even Downpour has really stepped up to fill that gap. However, like I said, the one thing that I would change is mana, and I think I would start here. Healing Stream Totem being 5% of your base mana. You can have up to 2 charges, but basically in a lot of burst moments, you can have up to 3 charges with Totemic Recall, Totemic Recall. So in an instant, just like spewing out 15% of your base mana feels horrible. I think this definitely needs to be dropped down to like 3% of your base mana, and then it would be much less egregious. On top of that, like that's not the only thing that I would change personally. I also think Surging Totem and Healing Rain, but basically just Surging Totem, also needs a further mana reduction. It is egregious. 6.5% base mana. Come on, man. Like, I know it used to be a lot worse. And I know, yes, you can use your, what's it called? Nature's Swiftness to make it free. But that's basically committing, like, kind of a cooldown just to save on some mana. Like, imagine us Mistweavers if our mana was so bad that we would Thunder Focus Tea a Vivify just to cast a free Vivify. Like, that's kind of what Shamans kind of have to do. And it's just, I feel for the Shamans. But the thing is, like, Shamans can still crank. They can still get the job done. But man, it like no spec should be balanced by their mana. Yes, they should be affected by their mana usage, and they should always consider mana usage when they know how much, or to know how much they can spend in an instant, how much they can heal, how much they can commit to an instant. But it should not be this bad. It really should not be this bad. Hopefully my Shamans agree with me. There might be something that I would further change. Also, I think it's okay to have one dominant hero talent tree, and I think they have tried to tweak Farseer back to its former glory. If I were to change one further thing, other than those few mana sources, it would be Farseer. There was that change that they did coming into the season where, for some reason, I'm pretty sure how it was worded. I cannot find the patch notes to save my life, but maybe one of you guys can find it for me. Farseer Shamans, the little dudes that you summon, they scale off of like your mastery or something. I'm pretty sure. Like, I said it in one video and everyone was like, well, I can't find those notes. So I went and dug, still can't find those notes. So please correct me on that. Maybe I'm miswording it or misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I just know that Farseer monks. Farseer ancestors feel so lackluster to where they used to be. And that is probably another thing that I would change. Although, like I said, they are trying to get back to where it should be. But yeah, that's Resto Shaman. I think their mana is pretty atrocious, pretty egregious. Other than that, the spec is like chef's kiss perfection. Such a fun spec. You just have to drink all the time in Mythic Plus. Next up, let's actually talk about Mistweaver Monk. I don't like to say Mistweaver Monk for last, although I think a lot of people probably think I do in all these videos, but no, I like to talk about Mistweaver kind of like midway through. I'm antsy to talk about it. I love Mistweaver Monk. However, I don't think it is a perfect spec. There have been some fantastic additions. Obviously, I am a huge fan of both hero talent trees. I do think that Master of Harmony could use a rework to specifically just Purified Spirit. So this is if you don't use any of your Vitality, or if you have some left over, then it'll just expel the rest as healing. But healing on a 30-second cooldown for your own health bar amount is really not a lot. So what I would do is I would tweak this number up and say, like, when Aspect of Harmony ends, any remaining vitality is expelled at 1.5 times the amount, which isn't that egregious, given that if you want to get the max use out of Purified Spirit, you would have to literally go AFK so that you aren't healing anyone in like a raid environment, for example, just to heal 1.5 times your health bar. So I definitely think they could tweak this number for Mistweavers. Outside of that, I think the hero talent trees are Chef's Kiss. I love our hero talent trees. I love how Celestial Conduit interacts with like shaving your cooldowns to make you just a turret of renewing mists, and rushing wind kicks and raid with the rushing wind kick and Yulon build. I also love how the build kind of interacts with, or the Chi-Ji build in raid interacts with Celestial Conduit, and how it can help you cycle your rising sun kicks and get a lot of damage in. I think this is just chef's kiss of hero talent trees. However, I think that this is kind of what sparked me saying the whole Cataclysm quote at the beginning of Cataclysm, leaving its scar on Azeroth. I do think that past nerfs, or past Mistweaver builds, I should say, like past seasons where Mistweaver has kind of peaked over the threshold of where healers should land in a season, and they've really been brought back by Blizzard in those instances. I think those nerfs have still left their mark, and now we're in a new age of Mistweaver, a new age of WoW, where we have giant talent trees, not just these small ones that I think can be fixed. So for starters, I know that was a lot of yapping before this, but I think Rushing Wind Kick is fantastic. Now that they've really juiced up how much it juices up your renewing mists, this spell is sick. I am such a fan. I used to have some gripes about this spell, but I really do think it is in a great spot. However, when this joined the game, so did Jade Empowerment. Jade Empowerment is the whole Crackling Jade Lightning synergy, and it first joined the game at like crazy numbers. They've nerfed it, they've nerfed it, they've nerfed it, they've nerfed it, and I truly do believe that this spec was so much like more, like it was just so much and on an even playing field with the other specs in its former glory. So back before they nerfed Jade Empowerment the last time, and I believe the numbers said that you would hit your single target for 2,500%, but then it would only cleave at like, I believe 15%. It's been a while, but basically if you're hitting 5 targets, you're doing the same amount, but if you're hitting 1 to 4 targets, you're now doing a lot less, especially at 1 target. And it has made it just feel just like it's been very dejecting, I think is a word, playing Mistweaver pre and post nerf with Jade Empowerment. I just think that they really sucked the fun out of this talent, in my opinion. And I wouldn't be saying this, like I wouldn't be complaining about this if I hadn't seen so many of y'all comment on this too. I think so many of you guys agree. I'm not speaking for everyone, obviously, but I think a lot of people agree that Jade Empowerment just should return to its former glory, and I don't think it would break the spec. This was a moment where they saw that Disc Priest was really strong. They needed to nerf it, and they saw that Mistweavers were doing well as well, and they were afraid that when they nerfed Disc Priest, that Mistweaver would just be the new broken spec, but they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have pre-nerfed Mistweaver for that moment. They should have seen where the balancing led, or where it landed. And I firmly believe that everything would be better, not just more fun, but just the game would be better as a whole if Jade Empowerment returned to its most recent and former glory. Outside of that, I think this spec definitely needs a rework in how its like numbers are tuned, I should say. There are so many healing modifiers on the spec that it turns new players away so quick. What I'm talking about are Chi Harmony, Enveloping Mist, and Soothing Breath, just to name a few, just to name the big ones. But there's also like other ones like Coalescence. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can say, hey, you're now doing 1.4 times the healing, 1.5 times the healing, 2.1 times the healing. There are so many ways that you amplify how much your healing hits people, and it is not long-term healthy. I mean, what are they going to keep doing? Just like adding more and more healing modifiers? No, no, no. I think it would make this spec so much more healthy if they cut Chi Harmony in half. Yes, I said it. Just strike it in half. Say that if your renewing mist is on someone, they for the first 8 seconds they only get 25% of the healing. Cut enveloping mist from its up to 40% down to like up to 20%. Cut it in half, right? And then and take once again take a syringe and take all half of that power out and inject it elsewhere in the spec. And I think the baseline of Mistweaver would be very good, but the skill ceiling would drop a little bit. But with the baseline raising a lot in terms of how much healing you can do, I think that would be way more inviting to new players. While also, since the baseline's rising, but the top end is lowering a bit, I think the top end wouldn't shift that much. Admittedly, obviously, if they just totally gut these two talents or a bunch of these talents, yeah, it would go down a lot. But if they tweak it accordingly, this spec would be so much healthier. So where would I inject that power? Where would I inject the healing that you're taking away from these modifiers? I would inject it into something like Shaylin's Gift. I think a lot of people have complained about Shaylin's Gift in the past. I think I would inject it. They've already kind of juiced up Rushing Wind Kick, so I wouldn't really inject it there. I probably would inject it into the calculation of a Mastery proc a little bit, not too much, but I think their Mastery procs could use another juicing up. And then I would inject it into Revival. Revival, what, dude? Revival in raid. Every time I press it, it used to be that like I would press it to troll my resto druid in my raid. Like as soon as he presses trank, I would press revival. I don't play with that resto druid anymore, but oh, it was so much fun because you would just snipe all the healing. Not all of it, but you'd snipe a good chunk of it. But now I press revival, and I'm like, wait, did I press it? Where did it go? Like, what's happening? Like, nowadays, you literally have to press revival in your celestial window in order to get it to heal anything, because you have all those healing modifiers once again on everyone. It's just like a snooze button. It's so boring. Please buff revival, especially in raid environments. In Mythic Plus, I think they've done a good job buffing it. In raid environments, it definitely can use a buff. So, long story short, I think most of the spec is very good. I think Manatee's in a good spot. It's not too broken. It's not bad. I think the hero talent trees are chef's kiss in terms of how fun, engaging, and how they affect how you play the spec. But I do think the spec has a complexity issue in the nitty gritty of things, and a lot of that has to do with the healing modifiers. And I think that is it's just an issue in the long term. Like we can't just keep adding healing modifiers every tier and then just yeah, the lower end of the player base is going to keep suffering, and it's going to keep the I don't know. That's just my take on Mistweaver. I added into some Shaylin, some revival, yada yada. What have we not talked about? I know we haven't talked about Disc Priest, but we'll save that for last. Let's go ahead and talk about Holy Paladin. And dude, the Holy Paladin build has really revived my thoughts on this spec. The one that I believe it was Ellesmere that created it, or at least I know that they popularized it. But this Holy Paladin build is sick, and it does a lot of like it performs a lot of the way in a lot of the ways that I used to say, hey, change Holy Paladin in this way. Holy Paladin needs a rework. Like I used to think Holy Paladin needed some Holy Shocks and Word of Glory buffs just to bring it back in line with what Holy Paladin should be. Now I don't. Now I don't. I definitely think that Holy Paladin is landing on its feet. However, I do think that they should get a slight throughput increase in some way, because it definitely should be a little bit more viable in raid than it is currently in terms of pure throughput. It definitely should not be at the top of the meters, but it shouldn't be this far at the bottom. At the charts, it's very much at the bottom compared to the other healers. And where I think they need to add this healing back in to make this spec more healthy for the short term is in Herald of the Sun. And now this isn't a rework that I'm suggesting. This is more of a buff. I know a lot of these were just like little buffs in a way that actually would kind of be a minor rework. I just believe that this spec is very good. It's very, very, very slept on. I don't think this needs a major overhauling change or rework to how it plays, but I do believe that is it Dawnlight or what is it? It's Sun's Avatar. I think Sun's Avatar needs to get some of its former glory restored. And if you don't know what Sun's Avatar is, this is when you're playing Herald of the Sun and you pop your wings button, either Avenging Wrath or Crusader. You then put like a hot on a few different people called Dawnlight, and you can then further put a few hots on other people in the long run, but you connect yourself with like a laser beam between you and that player, and that's what Sun's Avatar is. And this used to be very strong. Like if you could connect to all 5 party members in your group in a Mythic Plus dungeon and stand on the opposite side of mobs, all those lasers would cut through and do significant damage. You would do so much healing. If you connect it to the enemies and let that beam cut through all of your allies, it would do a lot of healing. They nerfed it a ton on its first iteration, and over time have just continued nerfing it. And I definitely think that the spec as a whole, at that time, those nerfs were 100% warranted. But at this time, current day, June 7th, at the time of recording this, I do think that the spec could get some of that former power restored back into Sun's Avatar, and no one would bat an eye. It wouldn't shift up the meta. It would just bring Paladin into an even better spot. And that's, once again, I'm not saying that it desperately needs a buff. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that Sun's Avatar needs to have more of an oomph. And that's just my take on this. But other than that, like I said, I really like the new design of Light of the Martyr. I did not like old Light of the Martyr. I hated pressing that button, the one that would take some of your health and give it, or like spot heal someone. It was super lame. It had a bad legendary that I hated around it, but it was actually a good legendary, but I hated playing around it. I really like the new Light of the Martyr Mythic Plus build, and I love how they play in Raid. I just think that something like Sun's Avatar could use a little juicing. This one's probably the least. This one and Holy Priest, I do think that they are pretty solid in terms of design. I just think that the numbers could use a little bit more tweaking, and Holy Paladin doesn't need as much of a rework as Holy Priest, in my opinion. But once again, the 2 holy specs are the least of the 7. Did I not talk about Evoker? I completely skipped over Evoker, but hey, I actually do have something to say about Evoker. Sorry, Prez, I always do this. It's literally just Prez that I forget about. But Evoker has a significant issue. I think everything on this tree is in a good spot. Everything on this tree is in a good spot. Both of these trees play so well around your tier set. However, the issue is with their hero talent tree. Chrono Warden, great, beautifully designed, very simple. It doesn't add complexity to the spec, it just adds bonuses to what you're already doing. And on top of that, it plays fantastically around your talent. I'm sorry, your, oh my god, I'm blinking. Your tier set. Well, what the heck? I literally just said that. But it plays fantastically around your tier set. Beautiful design. Very well integrated into the rest of the spec. However, a giant scar, like Cataclysm scar, in the spec is with Flame Shaper. They gutted Flame Shaper. This spec used to be absolutely broken, and that was due to Flame Shaper. And they gutted it and then just left it and spat on it. And it's kind of like that scene from Office Space where they beat the printer or whatever it was with a hammer and like leave it out in the field. That's Flame Shaper, okay? This hero talent tree needs some life breathed back into it. And over time, they've kind of tossed out little they've lobbed little tiny little buffs here and there, but it needs some love. And I definitely think that that love can be found if they were to change, or if they were to buff the actual healing and damage of Engulf, but not affect, where even is it? Where is this talent? I'm going crazy. But not affect Consume Flame. It's the bottom one. I'm so stupid. But not change this number. This number is where you can really break this hero talent tree and where it has been broken in the past. Definitely don't touch this, okay? Don't touch Consume Flame. but they absolutely should touch engulf. Outside of that, they need to fix what they changed back. I believe that you can't store. Maybe I shouldn't say this on the video without like really diving into what happens, but I'm pretty sure they made it to where you can't store like engulf in stasis, right? Or maybe it was that you can't engulf into your echoes or something. Like you can't echo and engulf. Whatever they did to engulf, I just remember it was like it was backbreaking. And if they could find some happy median to where it's not its former glory, but it's not dead in the water like it is currently, and how that interacts with things, this spec would be fantastic. And in saying that, if they fix that interaction or revive that interaction, I should say, and then nerf the numbers even, I think that would be fantastic. But even right now, I'm pushing on my Evoker, and I mean, it just feels like a former shell of itself. Like I, as someone who is a diehard Flameshaper fan, swapped to Chrono Warden. I did, and it sucks. I mean, you look at the stats, and they are like ridiculous. If you look at all the hero talent trees, I believe the max of like Oracle Disc Priest is a plus 21 key. The max of like a bunch of other healers is like 20, 20, 20, 19, 19, 19, 18, 18. And then Flameshaper, 13. 13. It's egregious. It is absolutely egregious. So absolutely fix Flameshaper in Mythic Plus specifically. Maybe don't touch the things that make it really good in Raid. And I think you are looking at a very, very healthy spec that is landing on its feet in all capacity, all cylinders firing after these recent buffs. And guys, that's going to do it for this video. This mid-patch little, where should we go? Where should we go with the healers? How can we do this? Should we download Master Duel for Yu-Gi-Oh? I don't know. But guys, what do you think? How would you change each of these healers? Did any of these touch home? Like, have you been screaming from the mountaintops that you should buff Invigorating Mists for the longest time? I'm sure a lot of you have, because I see it in my comments. You know, have you been screaming about Flame Shaper or Herald of the Sun? Or, you know, what have you been thinking needs to be done to these specs? Not just for the short term, but for the long-term health. So I'm talking reworks or buffs that bring some dead things that were big interactions in the past back to life. Guys, thank you for watching this video. I appreciate all the support. These style videos are really fun to make because I sit here and think about this all day long while in queue for keys, and it's just fun to turn it on and yap and have a good conversation in the comments below. So definitely leave your opinions, your thoughts, how you believe that these healers can be fixed with little reworks in the comments below, and I look forward to discussing that with you. Make sure while you're down there that you hit the like button and that you're subscribed so you don't miss future healing videos like this one. I appreciate you all for supporting. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care, guys.